Over the past few days, I've been testing a lot of different scarab farming strats. I've been primarily focused on finding the best low-cost strat with a simple setup. So basically no glittering, nothing crazy in terms of cost. And I have discovered this absolute beast of a strat that basically revolves around putting rare mobs on the map. Then you juice them as much as possible with the Scarab of Nemesis that gives them extra modifiers, and the Scarab of Divinity, which makes them Pantheon touched, basically resulting in a lot more loot from those mobs. This strat made me around 25 divs an hour in profits. In reality, it would probably be around 30 after I'd liquidate my scarabs. It was very enjoyable to run, it was very straightforward. If you're looking for new farming strats and tier 17s, I definitely recommend you check this one out. So the map setup is pretty straightforward. I have rolled my fortresses to have scarabs at least 100%. I'll leave the rejects in the description, and then I put one delirium orb on it. This makes the map have more quantity and also boosts makes it a bit easier to run. I've also have 5 maps on which I use the Maven's Chisel of Scarabs. You don't have to do that one, it's not important at all, but basically the maps that had 130% of Scarabs or more, I used also Maven's Chisel of Scarabs, but I don't really think it matters so much. Here we basically had 2 Scarabs of Adversaries. This adds rare monsters onto the map, which is what we want. Then we boost them with 2 Scarabs of Divinity. This makes them Pantheon touched and adds some extra loot as well. And then we use this Horn Scarab of Nemesis to give them extra additional modifiers, which also boost the loot we get from them. The map craft that we want to put is a quantity of items found in the area and Eater of Worlds as well. You can experiment, but that's just what I went with. Quantity is solid and doesn't cost anything. Alright, quickly gonna go over the Atlas tree I've done. So basically I've picked every single scarab node there is. I've also selected cartography scarabs and ambush scarabs to be more likely. I have taken the tormented spirit nodes in the center. The idea behind this is because we're adding rare mobs on the map already, we're gonna boost them even further by making them possessed. I think this is a pretty good node, especially if you're adding rare monsters on the map, because up to 5 rare monsters being possessed, I think it's quite nice in terms of extra loot you get per map. I've picked the scarab nodes, of course, the special ones here. I've taken the map nodes as well. I have also taken singular focus, and this is quite important. Because you're taking singular focus, what you also want to do is remove all the favored maps you have. Basically, it means you don't really drop maps in your maps. Instead, you're going to drop some extra currency, which is a nice bonus in my opinion. Now, one more important thing to note is when you're running your maps, if you find an Eater altar that says that the scarabs dropped by enemies have a chance to be duplicated, you must absolutely take it unless you really can't run. So pay a bit of attention, because essentially what it does, imagine if you have a 40 chance of duplicating the scarabs, you could say that on average you're gonna drop 40% more in value of scarabs per map, which is absolutely huge. Definitely makes you a lot more profit. So don't miss this altar. Obviously, if you miss it, it's okay, but you'd be missing out on quite a lot of extra profits from that. This is how my stash tab looks after I've done 30 fortresses, and most of this loot is scarabs. There's also some fragments as well and some raw currency. I think there's a few divine orbs. There's some Valdos, not that many dropped, and I dropped a Voidborn reliquary key somewhere here, over there. Basically, it's exactly like you'd expect from a scarab farming strat. All of this is actually very easy to liquidate. Currency is easy to liquidate, scarabs and fragments. All of these extremely liquid, extremely in demand. So basically after you're done with your farming session, you'll be able to sell it off extremely quickly. I've also dropped some Yokes of Suffering. Typically I'd expect a few more. I've dropped only 2. They're like 1 div each, depending on the rolls you get. Top rolled ones can be a bit more expensive. And I've also dropped the Brian Crown. You drop a lot of uniques running these. I didn't pick up most of them, but just be aware that you do in fact drop a lot of uniques, which is quite nice for dust as well. Let's go over to Wealthy Exiles, check the actual numbers. This is the last snapshot I've taken just to show that in fact you do make a lot of divines per hour, because these maps are quite quick and you also make a lot of money from them, a lot of currency. You actually end up making a lot of divs per hour. Of course, this is pure revenue. The actual profits would be a bit lower. I've accounted for that in the Excel sheet that we'll take a look at later. And this is the actual loot I've got, so it's 83 divs from 30 maps, which is quite nice considering that they were low cost maps. Most of this loot is scarabs, as you would expect. 25 of these is fragments. So because I was running fortresses, you don't really get that many expensive fragments to drop. You can consider running Abomination or Sanctuary or Ziggurat. Obviously it depends. Fortresses, they have some extra barrels on them which give you some extra loot, but most importantly I like the layout. It's pretty quick, but if you want to squeeze more profit per map, you can definitely run different maps. It's kind of a balance between the profit per map and the profit per hour you can make, because fortresses take quite quick. So all of these are extremely liquid fragments. The Voidborn Reliquary Key is a bit of a lucky drop, but it does drop consistently enough that I'm not really going to consider that as a lucky drop. Now also Yoke of Suffering, so I've dropped Reliquaries and Patience. You do drop a lot of uniques, so you can expect something like this in the Excel sheet. I'm gonna put that as a lucky drop, so we can also see the profits without it, but it's just 2 divs, so you know, no one really cares. Another thing to note is that the actual profits would be higher after I'd liquidate them. This is pre-liquidation, and Wealthy Exile tends to underprice the scarabs by quite a bit. I would expect the actual profits to be around 90 divs, which means it's even more profitable than that. So this is the Excel sheet. Once again, this is where I put all my strats, notes and thoughts. You can see everything you need to run the strats that I make videos about in the sheet very easily and very quickly. This is strat ID number 11, so we're gonna go over to the sheet. You can see, so the price of div was 140C, and basically I've got 30 fortresses. That was 1 div each. You can sometimes they go for more or less, but they don't really fluctuate much. Just double check the cost of fortresses, but I don't expect it's gonna fluctuate that much. The scarabs themselves were extremely cheap. The adversaries in Divinity are practically, they cost next to nothing. Perhaps they could go up after this video is made, so just double check. But these are very common scarabs, so I don't expect that they would fluctuate that much. Nemesis is also extremely stable, and basically now, because I rolled my maps using 100% scarabs, this took some extra chaos. This depends on your build. Because my build can't run a lot of mods, I basically have to roll it for a bit longer. But if you can cut down on these costs as well, you'd be making even more profit. Maven's Chisel of Scarabs cost quite a bit. What I'd done is I put these chisels on maps that had 130% or more Scarab roll, just to boost them even further, and they're 40C each. Now look, you don't have to do it. It's just something I'm playing around with. Obviously it's a huge chunk of cost. I don't really think it's that necessary. I didn't really test those maps separately to give a definitive conclusion here. You can run it without, I think it'd be completely fine. The total aggregate cost was 48 divs. The revenue we've made from it is 83 divs. Note the actual revenue would be higher because I didn't liquidate these scarabs yet. I'd expect it'd be around 90 divs. And with this in mind, we've made 34 divs in profit, and profit per map was 1.2 divine orbs. Assuming the time per map would be 3 minutes per map, you'd actually be making around 24-25 divines an hour in profit, which I consider very good for these strats, especially considering that this is consistent profit. You pretty much just drops a lot of scarabs every single map. So that's why I really like this strat. In general, I like low cost strats, but the problem with ambush is it tends to be a bit inconsistent sometimes because it's strong boxes. Whereas this, you do get scarabs very consistently. As you could see from my Wealthy Exile breakdown, I have a healthy mix of all the scarabs that you could possibly think of. ROI per map was 75%, which is quite nice as well. This strat didn't make as much gold as farming magic mobs would make you, but it still made me a very good amount of gold. Note, I have next to none magic find on my character. I have only 13%. If you have magic find on your character, you can expect upwards of 100,000 plus gold per map. But rare mobs are not the best thing for gold. However, it's still a very good amount of gold, definitely enough for all my needs. So I consider this good in terms of gold still. Pros and cons of this strat is this strat's extremely straightforward to run. It's consistent. You just run through the map and you literally just kill all the mobs. You pick up all the altars. There's no backtracking. Just clear the map, go out. It drops a lot of uniques for dust, which is really good if you're running King's March and sending you 50 million shipments for those mirror shards. I didn't pick up the uniques, but you do get a lot of them because it's rare mobs. And also what I really like is it's a low cost strat, so you spend 1 div on the map itself, but the scarabs themselves are very, very cheap. The scarab cost per map I think is well like 10C or something like that, so it's like extremely low, which is very nice. Means it can be used as an entry-level strat if you want to get into tier 17s. It can be used if you don't have that much budget saved up as well, because it's consistent enough. The cons is the mobs can be a bit rippy sometimes if you get unlucky, because we boost the rare mobs quite a lot and put some extra modifiers on them. So if you have a weaker build, perhaps you couldn't really do the strat. Just consider that. If you're not really comfortable running tier 17s in general, I'm not sure how comfortable you'd be running this. I think it's probably the best low-cost scarab farming strat that I have tried myself. The profit is very good, the ROI is very high as well, and the profit per map would be even higher after liquidation. So overall, I really like it. I would recommend running this. Try it out, and I think you'd be happy with it as well. Thanks for watching. If you have any thoughts, suggestions, feel free to leave that in the comments. I can't promise to test every single strat because I do have some things planned and videos to make on top of my job. So I'm trying my best, but if it sounds interesting enough, I'll get to it and I'll definitely reply to you as well. And I welcome all discussion in the comments if you disagree with anything I said, or if you have suggestions on how to make anything better. Right, thanks for watching guys, and I'll see you next time.